Now, Sam's going to be speaking for us in just a moment, but he's asked that a portion from the biography of Jesus written by Matthew be read. And Steve Miller's going to read it for us, one of the principles at Matthew's Folbig. Would you like to do that? Is that all right? I'll pass this to you.
All right. So we're reading from Matthew chapter 13 and verses 44 to 46. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field.
Peter.
When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it.
Well, I have 3 boys in my family and they are high energy. So in this picture, they're blurred, not because the photo is blurred, but they are blurred. They're always moving. So my wife and I, every night, our job is simply to get them to go to bed. We're always going, go to bed, just go to bed, go to bed. Because if we can get them to go to bed, boom, we can finally watch Netflix. And when we have Netflix, we have what I call the Netflix red wine mismatch, because you start the episode of Netflix, you pour yourself a red wine, but when you finish the episode of Netflix, you're only halfway through your red wine, so you have to start another episode of Netflix. Then when you finish your wine, you're only halfway through that episode of Netflix, so you have to pour yourself another red wine, and boom, it's happened again. It's midnight. You've drunk another bottle of wine and you think, oh my gosh, I've done it again. So I said to the nurses at work, do I have a problem? And they said, well, have you had the Netflix screen of shame yet? I said, what's a Netflix screen of shame? And they said, well, if you watch Netflix long enough, boom, this screen comes on, it goes blank. And it says, are you still watching? And you see your reflection in the blank screen, tub of ice cream in one hand, empty bottle of wine in the other hand, and you think, yes, I'm still watching. But if you think about what's the problem with that? Because what else is going on in my life? I'm just eating, sleeping, paying the bills. I might as well add Netflix to that. At least it's eat, sleep, pay the bills, watching Netflix. But that's a question that haunts us. Is this my life? Where am I going? Welcome again to our February series of talks. The title is A Roadmap to Life. Today is week 2, talk 2, and our question is this: purpose. Where am I going? And that is the question that haunts us, because every day it's the same. We wake up, we go to work, we come home from work, and the next day we do it all over again. In Greek mythology, we have the story of Sisyphus, where he was punished by the gods to do the same thing every day, roll a rock up the hill, to watch it roll back down the hill, and the next day to do it all again. Where am I going? What is the point of all this? Well, to answer this, we'll have a 10-minute talk now, from a 15-minute talk from me now, followed by some question and answer from you guys. So where am I going? We've basically got 4 options. Option number 1 is this: I am going nowhere. The other day I was riding my motorbike on the M4 freeway and I was chewing some gum at the same time, but then my chewing gum fell out of my mouth, and then now it's in my helmet, just rattling around. I'm going 100 kilometers an hour, just shaking my head, trying to get rid of this chewing gum that's inside my helmet. And now you're sitting there going, what's the point of this story? And that's the thing, there is no point to the story. It's just something that happened. And that's our life as well. There is no point. It's just a series of events that happen. According to philosophers, apparently as human beings, we are wired to look for meaning. So we are wired to look for significance, and we create stories, but really there is no meaning. Get over it. This is Yuval Noah Harari. He's a secular philosopher. He's written bestsellers like Homo Deus, Homo sapiens, and that's exactly what he says. There is no point. As human beings, we like to create what he calls useful fictional stories. They're useful because they create meaning, but they're fictional. There is no point to what goes on. So the universe comes from nothing, it's going back to nothing. We come from nothing, we are going back to nothing. There is no point to what we do. But there's a problem with this choice, and it's this: we live as if things do matter. It does matter that our children are happy. It does matter that we cry out for justice. It does matter that we look after this planet. It does matter that we call people out to be morally accountable. We live as if things do matter. So that gives us option number two. Option number two is this: well, I create my own purpose. We can order a pizza from Domino's, but that's boring. It's much more fun to create your own pizza, because then you can have round ones, square ones, you can have lots of cheese, you can have no cheese, you can have pepperoni, you can have peanut butter. Hey, it's your pizza. You do whatever you want. And it's the same with our life. Hey, you create your own purpose. You do whatever you want. Do whatever it takes to make you happy. Create your own stories, create your own purpose. Maybe your purpose is traditional. You want to raise a family. Or maybe you want to volunteer and make a difference. Or maybe you want to climb a mountain. You want to go surfing, or you want to dress up as a stormtrooper or Jedi Knight. Hey, it's your life. You do whatever you want. You do you, knock yourself out. But there's a problem with this option, and it's this. If I leave my job and volunteer, you say, oh, that's so noble. It's so good of you to do that. But if I leave my wife and kids and have an affair with someone at work, now I think, oh, that's not so noble. But hang on, I'm creating my own purpose, aren't I? Well, that's where we realize, hey, not all stories are the same. So we need option number three, and it's this. I need to be part of a bigger story than just my own. I love watching cricket, but my wife does not understand cricket. She doesn't get it. She walks past and goes, hey, it's cricket. It's still on. I say, yeah, because it goes for the whole day. Next day she walks past and says, cricket, it's still on. I say, yeah, that's because it goes for 5 days. Next week she walks past and goes, cricket, it's still on. I say, yeah, because there's 4 matches in this series. But you can't blame my wife for not getting cricket, because what is the point to cricket? Really, someone throws your ball, you hit it away, and they're going to throw it back at you. What is the point to cricket? And that's where we have to make it part of a bigger story. We say, hey, it's for a trophy. There's a tradition. There's rivalry. Hey, it's for your country. So when David Warner scores 100 runs, he kisses his helmet. He's done it for the country. He's done it for you. Thanks. And when you score a century, you salute the heavens as a tribute to your friend who's died. Philip Hughes died tragically playing cricket. So suddenly it's more than just a game. It's part of a bigger story. There's something that transcends the game to give it significance. There's a bigger story that this is part of. And Viktor Frankl agrees. He says our life needs to be part of a bigger story. We all know this famous book, Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, you know, we become better people through suffering, but suffering has to be for a reason. There has to be a reason for things. There has to be a bigger story. And Viktor Frankl loves giving us this parable of 2 women. He says one woman, she, through the fortunes of life, she's born beautiful and rich. Another woman, through the misfortunes of life, she gives birth to a child of profound disabilities. This woman, at the end of her life, she'll say, what was all that about? I had a lot of money, I flirted with a lot of men, and I went to a lot of parties. This woman, at the end of her life, will say, wow, I raised a child with profound disabilities. This woman will find life empty, self-absorbed, and unfulfilling. This woman will find life fulfilling. Why? Because she was part of a bigger story than just her own. But we've still got a problem, and it's this: not all bigger stories are the same. David Warner, when he scores a century, he kisses his helmet. He's done it for the nation. But Virat Kohli leaves Australia after India's first test in Adelaide for the birth of his child. He's found something bigger than just cricket. He has a bigger story. And when he does this, we go, oh, that is so noble. That is so right. That is so just. If David Warner does this while his wife is giving birth to a child, we go, David, that's a little bit self-absorbed and selfish, don't you think? So why should this be the biggest story? Why? Because number 4, I need to be part of the ultimate story. We need an ultimate story that makes sense of all the other stories. For the nerds out there, this is Lord of the Rings. We have Gandalf. We have Saruman. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Because they're both old white dudes with big beards. Or to know the answer, we need to know the ultimate story. Harry Potter, we have 2 boys. They both go to the same school. They dress the same. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Well, to know that, we need to know the ultimate story. Professor Snape, is he a good guy or bad guy? Well, we need to know the ultimate story. We need the ultimate story to make sense of what's the beginning, what's the end, what's up, what's down, what's good, what's right. So Virat Kohli leaving a cricket match to be at the birth of his child. For this to make sense, we need an ultimate story that says the life of a human being is more important than a game. The birth of a child is more important than a tradition. And somehow the responsibilities of a husband to a wife and a father to a child are more important than a trophy or achievement. We need an ultimate story. And it's the same for us. We need an ultimate story. Why do I wake up? Why do I work? Why do I make money? We need an ultimate story for this to make sense. And that's what Jesus gives us. If you came last week, you'll know that every year I do the same thing. I go through the internet and I try to think, if Jesus came today, what would he look like? So this year I found this picture off the internet. I thought, you know, if Jesus came today, this is what he'll look like. He'll be ethnic, tanned, a little bit podgy, because the Bible says he did like his eating and drinking. Also cutting edge, iconoclastic, like to upset a few people. Well, we just read in the Bible a story that Jesus tells. And in this story, Jesus says there's a man who finds treasure, ultimate treasure. And suddenly this treasure makes sense of his life. And suddenly this is the story that makes sense of all the other stories in his life. Suddenly this is a treasure that holds his whole life together. And this is a treasure worth living for. So what is this treasure? Well, Jesus goes on to explain, it's the kingdom of God. It's being part of Team Jesus. It's being part of the family of Jesus. And for this ultimate story to make sense, we have to know that there's a God who loves us, who made us. There's a God who calls us to be saved by Jesus. And Jesus dies for us. Jesus lives for us. If we believe this, we get to live for Jesus as he lives for us. We get to be part of a team, a mission, a kingdom, and everything we do is part of this mission, the mission of Jesus bringing his love, mercy, and justice onto this planet. So do you remember our original question? It was this: purpose. Where am I going? Now, just the other day, I was doing some gardening with my son, Toby, and we must have disturbed some ants because there were ants everywhere. And Toby said, wow, there's so many ants. Look at them. And I said, yeah, Toby, they work very hard. They live a very short time and then they die. And then Toby said, why do they work so hard? Why do we work so hard? How are we different from the ants? We too work hard, live a very short time, and then die. We need to find purpose. Where am I going? This is David Brooks, New York Times writer, just put out this book called The Second Mountain. And David Brooks talks about how in life there are 2 mountains. On the first mountain, it's all about climbing the mountain, success, achievements, trophies, satisfying the needs of the ego. And then you get to the top of the mountain and suddenly you realize there's nothing here. And that's when you realize there's a second mountain. And this is the mountain we should be climbing. And on this mountain, it's about serving. It's about giving. And this only makes sense if built into the rhythm and fabric of the universe is a God who gives as well. David Brooks also says, hey, it's all about serving. Yes, but this only makes sense if built in the rhythm and fabric of this universe is a God who also comes not to be served, but to serve. And so in the process of writing this book, David Brooks himself actually becomes a Christian. There's a whole chapter on grace. He says something I realize it's about grace. It's not about gaining, it's about giving grace. And for this to work, there's actually only one religion where this makes sense, where there's a God himself who is a giving God. It's all about grace, not about gain, about giving. So what is life all about? It's actually finding out that we are here to serve, to be part of a bigger story than just our own story. And this only makes sense if there's a loving, powerful, personal God behind this universe who himself also comes not to be served, but to serve, who comes to give. So we too can give to this God who's the ultimate giver. And so our story can also be part of a bigger story, which is part of the ultimate story, the story of Jesus.
Well, thanks very much, Sam. We'll let him just grab his grab a drink of water and get his breath for a moment. This is over to you now. So you can see that there's a number on the front of that form, or if you're watching via Zoom, there's a number on the base of the chat screen. Text your numbers in. I've already got some here. And at the same time, if you want to find out about future city legal events, the only way to do that is to scan the QR code in the back there. There's a link on the Zoom as well. And then you can just fill in the form there, and then we can make sure you find out about future events. And I realised I didn't introduce myself before. My name is Peter Ranch, and I work with City Legal and with Sam Chan. Now, Sam, you ready?
Yo.
Giving you a bit of a break. All right, here we go. Okay, this is one from Melbourne, which is interesting because it gives a hint as to what they've been doing for the last 9 months. That is, the question is, so what's the problem with Netflix? Aren't there always new shows to watch?
Oh, Netflix is this endless universe. It's this vortex that sucks you in. And so after I finish watching at midnight, my wife keeps going. She goes to 2 or 4 in the morning, and she's so sucked into the K-drama, the Korean drama universe, and it's endless. And the problem with that is because we sign in on the same account, she has wrecked my algorithm. So every time I sign into Netflix, it says, based on what you've recently watched, you want to watch this? I go, no, I don't. But somehow I feel like Netflix doesn't know me anymore. It's horrible.
Okay, all right. Okay, next question. So why is the biblical story better? And the follow-on question, how do we work out which bigger story is right? Because there's a number of competing stories out there, isn't there?
Heaps of bigger stories.
Yeah.
So why should the Virat Kohli bigger story be better than David Warner's story? Why should someone leaving their job to serve and make a difference be the better story than me leaving my wife and kids? So, what makes a bigger story? So on the one hand, we can say, you know what, that's right. You have your bigger story. I have my bigger story. You do you, I do me. You create purpose, do whatever makes you happy. Who am I to judge your story? That's one approach. And that's the approach where we say, hey, we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey together. We're all discovering, hey, we're all creating. But the Bible offers us an alternative. It's this. How about if the story comes to us? Then you know which is the better, bigger, ultimate story. And that's the Bible's claim, because in John chapter 1, it says the Logos became flesh. And the Logos is the Greek idea of purpose, Logos. The purpose became flesh. The ultimate story became flesh. So in Chinese, we translate that verse as the Tao, the way became flesh. And this is saying, hey, this is the ultimate story. And he's Jesus. The story of Jesus is the ultimate story. And I was thinking another way of answering this question is, why is the Virat Kohli story the better story than just playing cricket? Why is serving in a homeless shelter better than me leaving my wife and kids to have an affair? Somehow as human beings, we are wired to say, you know, it is better to love than hate. It's better to forgive than not to forgive. We prefer mercy. We prefer sacrifice and self-sacrifice. So these are stories of sacrifice and love and mercy rather than selfishness and being self-absorbed. Why are these the better stories? Well, it only makes sense, and it's a Christian story where there's a God who's also loving, merciful, forgiving, and self-sacrificial. Because if you look at all the competing mythologies, like Greek mythology, Asian mythology, the gods are actually quite mischievous. They're actually quite unkind. And if we want to say a husband ought to be faithful, monogamous to his wife, where do we get this idea from? Because in Greek mythology, they're anything but faithful and monogamous. They're cheating on their wives all the time. Well, in the Christian story, we have the story of Jesus, who's faithful and monogamous. So I think that's why the Christian story is the ultimate story, because somehow intuitively it fits with what we sense should be the bigger, better story anyway.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, there's a question here really following up the question about comparing stories. And it says there, what about other transcendental ultimate stories that give context to people's lives?
Yeah, we're always after something transcendent. So I was showing that with cricket, you know, we're wired to look for something more that transcends. We do want to be part of a bigger story. But I think that's a God-given, legitimate drive. God gives us God-given, legitimate searching for meaning, for freedom, for purpose, for hope, for redemption. So I think we're all wired to look for this. And I think that's why we do have these bigger stories. But again, for this to make sense, we do need an ultimate story. It's not just about having a bigger story. Where's the ultimate story that makes sense of freedom, purpose, hope, forgiveness, redemption?
So can I ask you, in your career of being a doctor and doing other things, being a personal trainer, how did the story find you? What happened with you?
Well, it's fascinating because I work as a surgical assistant, and that is on the bottom of the hierarchy. Like you know how they had those sign on buses a few years ago as an advertising campaign? It said, not just a GP. And I feel like saying, buddy, you are just a GP. Like in the medicine world, you know, that is as low as you can go. Well, I'm the guy who couldn't even become just a GP. I'm the surgical assistant who holds a leg for a surgeon in an operation.
Yeah, well, sometimes the right leg on the left
I
leg.
know. I'm actually the guy who, if I don't turn up, the operation can still go on without me. Like I'm so unnecessary for the running of things. I'm often not. Wherever I sit, I feel like I'm in the way. Like I'm always, oh, sorry, like, because, oh, sorry, yeah. Like I feel like I don't even need to be in the room. And then I get to work with the surgeons. They are like the airline pilots, the chefs of the industry. They throw tantrums all the time because they know. I remember John McEnroe used to push it and say, what's the biggest tantrum I can throw and show they need me, like I'm bigger than the game. And surgeons turn up and they know they are bigger than the game. They throw instruments down, they get whatever they want. They're the kings in that universe. They walk in, and one surgeon I work with, he's climbed the mountain. He's right on the top, like he's born in the eastern suburbs, done a knockdown, rebuild. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He runs multiple lists. That's it. He's the king. He's a king. He researches, he publishes, he gets wined and dined by all the surgical companies. And in the middle of operation, he actually just looked at me and said, oh, success isn't what I thought it would be. Because I actually said to him, hey, you know, how is everything right now? And he said, you know what, I'm open to talking because I found success and it's not what I thought it was going to be. And I know his life is totally empty right now.
Gee, well, thank you so
Well,
much.
he's climbed the first mountain, according to David Brooks, and he's just realized there is nothing on the top of the first mountain.
Okay, all right, we've got time for a couple more questions. This is a kind of a very heartfelt question. Look, what if a person is a bit unsure if they are really part of the ultimate story that you refer to? You know, they believe in God and they try to live like Jesus, but they're not sure what being a Christian, in inverted commas, is actually all about. You know, what is the qualifying factor? Asked the questioner.
Yeah, I was saying that. So it's not based on performance. I think we think it's based on performance or based on power of belief. We'll always be asking, am I a Christian? Have I done enough? Do I believe hard enough? It's based on status, and it's very binary. And I was just singing this. It just came to me this morning. You know, like there's so many forms of law. You know, you have criminal law. Am I innocent or am I guilty? There's family law. Am I of this family? Am I not of this family? There's immigration law. Am I a citizen? Am I not a citizen? It's very binary. In, out, boom, 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 boom. And that's what the Bible offers us. You're a Christian because, boom, you're a citizen. You're a people of God. Tick. It's a status. You're a Christian because you've been adopted into God's family. You're on Team Jesus. Tick. So that's family law. And you're a Christian because you're declared innocent. So that's criminal law. It's a status that we have, not based on performance, based on Jesus dying for us. But then the other half of the Bible is Christ in us. They have Christ performing for us. And because of Christ performing for us, we're citizen, we're in the family, we're innocent. But now we have Christ's Spirit in us, who makes us a citizen, who makes us a child of God, who makes us innocent. So we have both things going on, but again, not based on my performance. I was explaining, we have a mango tree in my backyard. Every now and then it gives mangoes, one every 4 or 5 years, but most years it doesn't give us any mangoes, but we still call it a mango tree, regardless of how many mangoes it gives us. It's a mango tree, it's in its DNA. And we are a Christian, regardless of how fruitful or unfruitful our life. Obviously, we want to be fruitful, but it's not based on our performance. We have Christ in us. So in our very DNA, I'm a Christian. And it's just based on what Christ has done. So if I just say, hey, Jesus, I'm just going to trust you on this, go out on a limb. I now want to tick the box that I'm of Team Jesus. That gives us that status.
Okay, I think we've got just time for one last question. If the story finds us, well, or the book reads us, as you said, what place is there for searching?
Oh, it's always both ends. Like we should search. That's how God has wired us. And I love how Jesus gives us that story of a man searching for treasure, and then Jesus, boom, shows himself to this man. Like, he will find the treasure found him more than he found the treasure. He could have dug anywhere, but no, the treasure found him. And so we go searching. I think God wants us to search, but then Jesus will say, hey, I'm here. Search no more. So he comes and finds us.
All right. Well, look, please, would you put your hands together? Thanks, Sam.
Thanks. Thanks
for speaking for us today.